Welcome to Real Talk, where I give real answers to real questions from real worship leaders. If you are a real worship leader with a real question and you want a real answer, head right here to submit your question for a future episode. Got some good questions this week? Let's talk about it. The first question that came in was about singing harmony. And guess what? Honestly, I'm not very good at singing harmony, so I had to defer to a friend, and luckily I have a friend who knows how to sing harmony pretty well. His name is Nate from Worship Refocus, so I sent the question to him, so here's Nate's answer.
Hey guys, as Spencer said, my name is Nate Brown, and I'll do my best to address this question. How do you help teen vocalists hear harmonies and pitch? So there's a lot there. There's a lot that could talk about or address, but what I'm gonna do is kind of address it from my own personal experience as a voice teacher for the last 10 years and as a worship leader where I get to work with my other fellow singers on the worship teams. I've gotten to observe lots of people, and I have to say how I would work with someone on improving pitch or harmonies is very individualized. And so it really has to do with the person because everyone is kind of at a different place. So I'm gonna kind of give a broad overview of different things I would do, and maybe you can determine for yourself where you would lie or where the person you're working with might need help with. So the very first thing that I do when it comes to improving on pitch and harmony singing is I want to make sure that the person is singing with good technique overall. Because however much you address the ear side of things and hearing, it's not really going to help if their technique is not correct and if they're not singing in the right way. And oftentimes when you fix the technique, the actual pitch and harmony, all that just fixes itself right away. I found that many times that oftentimes the pitch problems are actually technique problems. And so singing on the breath, singing with less tension, singing with a very relaxed sound, with good resonance, creating good space in the mouth, like all these things that contribute to good technique, that will help tremendously for singing on pitch and then also harmonizing. It all goes together. Because we need our instrument to be working in the best way for us because our voice really is an instrument. So that's the first place I'd start for anyone, teen, adult, anyone. That's the first place to start, is making sure that the technique is really set and locked in and at least improving or at least on the right trajectory. So after that, most people just need to focus on hearing their starting pitch before they sing and just imagining the note and then singing it. Because oftentimes we just kind of go for it and then hope that we land on the right note, and then we have to make adjustments as we go. And so it's really good to imagine the note, then sing it. Whether that comes to just singing the melody or the harmony, hear your note and then sing it. And I'd say for most people, it's just that, just becoming extra aware of the pitch as you start out, especially the starting pitches of songs. For the people that I work with, I'd say that the majority of people, it's like that. They just need to become more aware of their starting pitch. But a few people, very small percentage, who their sense of pitch is on the weaker side, I'll do something else. I don't like to say that people are tone deaf, because out of all the people I've worked with, I don't think that when we say tone deaf, I feel that it gives a connotation like, oh, that they're hopeless, they're tone deaf. And I really don't see it that way. We can all improve. We can all improve with our pitch wherever we are with how acute our sense of pitch is. And so for people though that their sense of pitch is weaker, then it might really be helpful to have some type of teacher to really guide them. Because you want to, first of all, I always want to make sure to work with them on technique, and hopefully that will improve their pitch in the first place. But then they just need to become more aware of their singing, and they need little micro adjustments. So when I work with a student, I'm telling them, as we're doing singing something, I'm telling them, oh no, you need to go a little sharper, you need to go a little flatter, up or down. And then once they get it, I'm like, all right, do you hear it? That's your note, do you hear it? And then they're like, yes. And then over time, they get better and better at it. And then they just need to be really, for themselves, constantly thinking about matching their notes and singing it correctly. And then over time, that just becomes a habit of just being hyper aware of it as well. So that's what I'd suggest for people in that sense. And now just for everyone, what I would do next is ear training exercises. And that would be things like singing on numbers or singing on solfege. And this is a really good tool. Basically what you do is you assign, for numbers, I do lots of exercises on numbers on our channel, on Worship Refocus. And so I have some resources over there if they'd be helpful for you. But what you do is you assign a number to every scale degree in like the major scale. So in C major, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you can do all sorts of numbers exercises to work on ear training. Like one of my favorites goes 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it keeps going, and there's all these exercises like this, just working on hearing the notes, working on hearing your intervals, and hearing how your note that you're singing fits into the scale. And just being aware of that is huge. And so just doing ear training exercises and just keep practicing on the ear training exercises. Another thing that can help is if you can read music, then sight reading is a great way to practice your harmony singing as well, because you just get used to singing the note, hearing it before you sing it, and going for it. But even if you don't read music, you can still work on ear training exercises that will then help your harmonizing. So the most important thing really for harmonizing is to be able to sing independently, right? And being so confident on your part that no matter if you hear the other parts, you don't get confused and you don't deviate from your part. And so when I'm working with people, that's a big thing. So again, depending on where they are on the spectrum, I'll oftentimes start with things like, I'll sing with the person I'm working with. It could be a teen singer, and I'll be singing with them, and then I will go over to a harmony part while they're singing on the melody, and just see if they can stick to their own melody and they don't get too confused when I sing something else. And sometimes they get all confused and then they mess up on their melody part, and then then I'll tell them, all right, I'll do it again, and really try to stay on your melody. So that can be one thing. Just have someone stay on the melody while they're hearing a harmony right next to them, and stay strong, because you need to build that independence of just staying confident, staying right on your part, and not getting swayed. And then for harmonizing, the next step that I would do with someone is say, okay, if you can do that, then your next thing would be learn a harmony part as if it were its own melody. And so, for example, on our channel, Worship or Focus channel, I have a lot of worship songs that I've just recorded all of the harmony parts. So I'll oftentimes have them do something like that. Have them learn the harmony part, and basically you just memorize it and sing it in your voice over and over until your voice kind of gets it in, you get it in your voice, and you can just sing that harmony part as if it were its own melody. And once you're good enough with it, then you can sing with someone else, try your best to sing again and not be swayed by the other part, which is now the melody. You're singing a harmony part. And then you just continue to do that over and over and over with other parts and get better at it. Along this line, the next thing, I find it really helpful to make sure you can hear your starting pitch. And so in lots of my tutorial videos now, I'm doing, I'm explaining the chord of where, the beginning of a chorus. What chord is happening at the beginning of a chorus, what note the melody is on, and then where the harmony parts lie in relation to that. So that's a really helpful thing, is if you can hear your starting note, it just helps so much better. And that, again, has to do with ear training. So for example, if the song of a chorus started on a C chord, and that's our one chord and we're in the key of C. And let's say the melody is da, come on my soul, maybe that. And then, so it's on a 3, melody's on a 3, then your upper harmony would be 5, and your lower harmony would be 1. And so being able to hear that chord, know that you're going to be on a 5, and just hearing it before you sing, and then 5, and then just going for it. So again, ear training exercises, hearing numbers will help you to be able to hear your note within the chord. And now beyond that, when I work with singers, it's just all about practice. You just have to practice over and over and over. So ways to do that would be, I would oftentimes suggest joining a choir. If you can join a choir, that's a great way to do it, because you're singing in harmony, but oftentimes you have other people next to you who are singing your same harmony part. And so you can kind of lean on them, and you're not all by yourself. But you can still hear your harmony part in context of the whole choir. And so you can hear how that works. But you're not all by yourself, because it can be hard to just sing your part, stick to it when you're all alone. So the other thing is just to sing on your worship team. Just get practice with it and try here and there to do the harmony parts. And obviously do some ear training, like I mentioned. That's really, really helpful. And just doing it over and over. Learn a bunch of harmony parts and continue to practice. So those are my tips for you as far as it comes to hearing harmonies and singing on pitch. And like I've said, I've created a decent amount of resources, and I'm trying to add on to it all the time. So you can feel free to check out our channel and see some of the vocal stuff that we have there, and hopefully that would be helpful for you and your team. So hope this was helpful and you got some ideas. God bless.
Thanks so much for your answer, Nate. If you want to hear even more from Nate, he's got a bunch of great harmony tutorials on YouTube, so check that out. I'll link his channel down in the description below. He's also got a free harmony challenge where he will teach you how to sing harmony to pretty much any song. So if you want to check that out, I'll link that down in the description below as well. Thanks, Nate. We have musicians from many different times, some Southern gospel, bluegrass, contemporary worship. We try to incorporate different styles in a song service. Age range of the church is newborn to 85. Our age difference on the team ranges from 55 to 75. Here are some of the problems. Some on the team, if it's not their style, piano player, they will say, I just want to play on that one. I give them chord charts and they don't even try to learn the songs. I don't think they even listen to it. Some won't come to practice no matter what. But come Sunday morning, they are in their place ready to play, not knowing any songs that we're doing. I've went to the pastor of the church who is part of the team, and I've said something about it, and he will say, well, would you rather them not be there at church? And I'm sorry to say, the last time I said yes. It is just frustrating trying to worship on a team that's not on the same page, and I really don't know if they even understand what worship is. They go by feelings, and I do understand they are older, singing about heaven makes them cry, but worship songs to the Lord, about the Lord, they will say, I don't get it. I do know it's what we were brought up in, but how can I bring this together? Thanks. Help before I go crazy and quit. First of all, I'm going to answer this assuming that you are the leader of your team. You never said that in your question, but I'm going to assume that. I just had an epiphany. I must put a spot in the form where people send in their questions, asking them whether they are leaders of the team or not, because that's so important, especially this question. If you're just a member on the team, my answer would be a lot different. But I'm assuming that you're the leader on the team, so I'm assuming that you have some authority to make changes. So what is the problem? You've got all of these different musicians, and they all like different styles. You got some that like Southern gospel, you got some that like bluegrass, some contemporary, so on and so forth. How do you bring them all together? And I think that you hit the nail on the head where you said, I'm not even sure they know what worship is. And I think that can sound condescending at first, and I would never say that directly to my team, like, you don't even know what worship is. I would put it more specifically. I wouldn't just say they don't know what worship is, I would say they don't understand what the purpose of corporate worship is, and I think that we need to delineate between the two, because if you just went to them and said, hey, you guys don't know what worship is, they're like, well, I'm worshiping every Sunday because this is how I like to worship. I like to worship with Southern gospel and bluegrass or contemporary or hymns or whatever it is. I like to worship that way, so I'm having my own personal time of worship up here, and when we play those songs, I get to worship, but when we play the other style of songs that I don't like, then I don't get to worship, but I'm fine with that because I'll just worship with the songs that I like. When in reality, when you gather with your church, what do I always say? You are there to worship together at all times. And I think this is maybe sort of behind the scenes in your question as well, as something that you need to think about as the person planning worship. Am I just facilitating momentary moments of personal worship for people? Is this just a problem for your team, or is it a problem for your entire church that they think we need this certain genre of music to worship God, and you feel that pressure from people, and therefore you say, well, I've got to please everybody with their styles of music, so I'm going to put bluegrass and contemporary and so on and so forth. And at least then people have little pockets where they enjoy the service. That cannot be our theology of corporate worship, because when we gather as the church, we worship together at all times. Your people, not just your worship team, although it probably starts there maybe, but your people must learn to worship at all times, even with styles that they don't enjoy. And so I've got to point you to a couple resources that I've created. First of all, I have a devotional called We Are All Worship Leaders. I think that this will help your team see what their role is as a worship leader. It's not just, hey, I'm up there to play music and I'm there to be the banjo player or the keyboard player or whatever, and then what do they say? If I'm just up there to play music and I don't like the kind of music that we're playing, then I'm not going to play at all, and I'm going to, say, nope, this isn't for me. But when they realize, as I teach in the devotional, that their job is to point people to the worthiness of God and provide them with the opportunity to respond, because that's what a worship leader does, and we are all worship leaders, then they will understand it's not about me. And it doesn't matter what kind of music I use, because my goal is not to enjoy the music that I'm playing. My goal is not to play the kind of songs that I like. My goal is not to have personal times of worship on the stage and simply model worship for people. No, I am actually leading my church in corporate worship, and I'll say it again, when we gather together for corporate worship, we worship together. So if you can teach your team that fundamental concept, actually, I will rephrase it this way: until you teach your team that fundamental concept, you will not fix the problem. So it must start there. We must teach our teams what worship is, like you said, but specifically what corporate worship is. And you can find that in the We Are All Worship Leaders devotional. I also just put out a 2.5-hour long worship team workshop that is called Worship Team Workshop, Worship Leading Foundations. This is the foundational understanding of what worship is, what corporate worship is, what your team's job is on a Sunday morning, and how they can accomplish that goal of corporate worship every single week. So if you're interested in those things, I'll stop plugging them now, but you can check that out down in the description below. But bottom line, you must teach your team what worship is. That I could give you a bunch of other advice, I could give you a bunch of other tips, but now that I think about it, until they learn that fundamental concept, not just what worship is, although it starts there, but what corporate worship is, they will never lead how they are supposed to. And you can bop the head down. I think of the whack-a-mole game, that pops up, oh, everybody likes this kind of genre of music. Boom, we hit that. Okay, we kind of solved that. But now it's, oh, we want to sing songs that are on the radio because we like them. Boom, pop that down, and another one pops up, so on and so forth. I could do that with a million examples. We must get to the foundation and teach our church and our worship team what the goal of corporate worship is, and that is to worship together, to glorify God and to edify each other. Now, when can you teach your team about what worship is? Well, I think the best time to do it is being very intentional with your worship team rehearsals, and that's why I put together the worship rehearsal blueprint. In that blueprint, you will find 5 pieces to the perfect worship rehearsal that allows you to lead your team well musically, because we need to be ready to lead musically on Sunday, but also relationally, so that they grow closer to each other, and more importantly, spiritually, so that they grow closer to God. And in those times, one of the things I talk about is having a devotional time. This is when we pour into our team spiritually. If all you're ever doing as the worship team leader is talking about music, then guess what? It's no surprise that your worship team's like, well, I like to play this kind of music, and all they focus on is music and not the spiritual side of leading worship. So if you want to see what a worship rehearsal can actually look like that leads your team musically, spiritually, and relationally, then check that out down in the description below, the worship rehearsal blueprint. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Till I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.